What's going on, nation? Welcome to a little late night Sunday, Monday morning discussion. A lot going on here. Sharky Waters Nation on YouTube, beginning of this channel, of course. One person in the chat. I appreciate you, whoever you are. We can have a Zoom call if we're doing this. Let's get some more people in the door here. Gonna retweet this, see who's awake. I know the West Coast is awake. I also know that people are not necessarily awake at this hour, but let's fire up the energy. Let's fire up the chat. Let's get a conversation going here. Sunday night for me is one of the best moments to just decompress, reflect on the previous week, look forward to the next week, and just figure out what's going on in life and really figure out what's going on in sports and sports handicapping. So I will be talking about the games. I will be dropping an official for you, for those of you guys who are watching here right now, and I will be posting on Twitter later this morning. So drop your comments. Going to retweet this now. Going to see if I can get some people in the chat. And going to have one beer, as I always do. As I always say, one beer can last a lifetime when we're having these great conversations. And we'll see what's going to go down here. Appreciate you guys immensely for coming through here at 1:12 a.m. Eastern, 10:12 Pacific, across the world, the globe, and the universe. Sharky Waters Nation. 9 words of lifestyle. Ride the baby out of the water. And let me just share this up, guys. I know the group chat is firing off conspiracy theories. A beautiful thing it is. And I think everybody in the group chat is so fucking smart. It's just like, I can't even keep up with it sometimes. And just retweeting on Twitter, the new X, as we know it now, and the whole thing. So, cracking a beverage. The one I always drink. It's my go-to beer for you. For those of you guys who don't know, it's High Life. It's a Florida IPA, 7.5%. Beautiful one. Let's drink one. Finishing off this beautiful pour, and let's cheers. Cheers up, fears down. Love you guys so much. Great vibes. Rocco, what's up, brother? Appreciate you, man. What's going on? Fernando, what's up, brother? My God. Big rock, bro. Big dog. Appreciate you, man. No doubt. Big dog. Smart guy. You're intelligent as fuck. You're loyal as fuck. You know that. You're loyal as fuck. You know that, man. And you know, and I'm telling you this directly, man to man, your biggest quality is loyalty. And that is something that most people don't have. So never, ever think that things are going awry in your life, man. Your loyalty stands above. And I see you for it. You're a powerful human being. So much big time shit, brother. Let me see what else is in the chat. Robert, what's up, brother? What's going on, bro? Appreciate you, man. You a dog. Big dogs, man. Appreciate you guys so much. Anybody else in the chat? See 11 guys. Let's get more people in here. Tell me what's going on, guys. You got plays, you got speculations, you got points, you got ideas, you got regrets, you got thoughts, you got visions, whatever's going on. Drop them in the comments. I will react to them. I am open for conversation right now. This is what the premise of these late night chats are. It's conversation. You know, we come on here for the official shows. We tell you what we think. We give you the show with the energy. We love to do it, but we also love to reflect and have a conversation. So let's see what's going on. Walker Bailey in the house. My God, what up, brother? What's going on, bro? You're actually, I love you so much, bro. You're such a dog. You're amazing. But I almost crack up to myself from the standpoint that you're grinding baseball because you're such a fan. You're such a huge Rangers fan. They're in the freaking ALCS, and the whole group chat is belaboring an awful Sunday night football game. I mean, just absolutely hilarious. I mean, like, we have to just take a breath and just laugh at that because it's funny. I mean, I was laughing when I saw you dropping the analytics and the commentary and you're just getting ignored. People were just going on and on and on. I was like, bro, this is just the beauty of fucking football. It just owns markets regardless. It just owns markets. And, you know, it is what it is. But, bro, I mean, it's the Rangers' time. It is their time. Great unit, great group, great free agents, great starting lineup. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Landon Legala, what's up, brother? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you are somehow connected to the restaurant industry. I remember you saying that, I think, over the course of time. I could be wrong. I think that, you know, one of the things that I don't even try to do, but I always tabulate people because I think you guys are so amazing. And I always think, what's your point of reference? What do you do in your life and what's going on? Correct me if I'm wrong. Are you the restaurant connection somehow in some way? Um, okay, for sure, for sure. Good. Okay, I'm just checking my little notebook here mentally as to what's going on with people and who's who and what's going on. Ziggy Balls, what up, brother? What's going on, man? Yeah, Ziggy, it's a great point. It's a great point. Yeah, Landon, 100%. Okay, that's what I was recalling. Family business, you're in there, you're moving on, 100%. Right, right, right. Ziggy, great comment. Great comment. I was watching the final point in the game, and I think that was just an egregious no call in the end zone. First of all, I think no matter what you have in that game, financially or fandom wise, that was pass interference, holding, both, all of it, whatever you want to say. Just an unbelievably egregious non-call from the referee. I mean, we're talking about throwing outcomes at this point with the league, where they will just literally just bite the whistle for a play like that. I mean, that's so far off the grid, in my opinion. I think that was a foul. It should have been another first and goal. And going to Ziggy's comment, the New York Giants should have QB sneaked it. You know, I don't know about sneaked it, but I think if you looked at the Bills play call on defense there on that one off, obviously to secure the game or not, they were just bull rushing the line of scrimmage. So I think that a run might have gotten stuffed there. I think Brian Dable, visionary, maybe, maybe not. I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, Belichick guy dating back a decade, a lot of circulations in his career, the whole thing. I don't know. I just think that their play call was not great. I think obviously in a small window, red zone football is tough to score the ball regardless of, what team you are and what your personnel is. Going to your best player, theoretically, your number one access point in terms of height is always a great idea. I can't say I love throwing the ball there, but I don't think their power run game was that great. I think the offensive line is not that forcible in that moment with the bull rush, just the ultra blitz, just center point coming from the Bills. But I think it stands for itself. The refs blew the call, and you just can't blow that call. Like, there are certain calls that are very subjective. In my opinion, that's not subjective. The dude is being held for close to 5 yards on the inside of his pad, like right here, like pulled and just pulled as he tries to extend up. And he couldn't move his arm to catch the ball. I mean, you talk about like letting stuff go, full impediment in the route. I mean, like, I had no skin in the game. I'm not a fan of either team, but I just think that's so unbelievably egregious by the refs to miss that. I think that's outrageous, really, absolutely outrageous. Joey Napolitano, what up, brother? What's going on, man? Ty Woods, what up, bro? Conversation wins. You are absolutely right about that. The world is definitely isolated, unfortunately, and it's a snapshot to social media. It's supposed to be the interconnected point, but it's unfortunately a very disconnected point. People sit around on their phones, they don't talk, and now they're isolated. So we always try to bring conversation here at the principal point. I think at any point in my life, I just want to bring conversation at all points in time. So this is where we need to be. This is where we should be, and let's fucking talk about it. The refs in the Saints game today were making some ridiculous calls. Yeah, no, there were a couple calls all day. I mean, you want to talk about the Saints game. The 1:00 slate was just an absolutely ridiculous slate. Ridiculous. You could make an argument that the Bengals should have lost the game. Geno Smith had 2 picks in the red zone, another, I believe, 4 and out in the red zone. So we win that bet. The Saints did criminal business in plus territory in the second half. I mean, we talked about this on the show before. We said that Houston was running a little too hot, ATS, and they should come the other direction. Well, guys, we're not going to stay off of the fate of the Houston Texans. They got away with it again today. Decently effective in the first half. I think that was a little bit more symptomatic to the fact that the Saints were on a road sequence off a blowout win, came out a little flat, little unfocused, couple small window mistakes. The Saints dominated the second half, completely dominated. Easily could have won that game. Easily could have won that game. And, I want to make the comment on it. Sports Talk with D. What up, brother? What's going on, my guy? But I do want to make a point on this. This is where it gets really interesting. It's not even so much that the Saints had so many opportunities to score touchdowns in the second half. If their kicker had just made two very standard field goals, they would have won the game anyway. This is the insanity of that game. They didn't even need to make those touchdowns on the final possession and a previous possession where they went 4 and out in the red zone. The kicker missed a 52-yarder in the first half, and I will say this. 52-yarder in contemporary football here in 2023, this is not backwoods 1995 football, guys. They're supposed to make that kick. So he should have made that kick. And then he missed a 29-yarder later. So here's the point. They should have been down 20-19 with the ball in the red zone of the final possession. And they probably should have kicked another field goal to win 22-20, which actually would have covered the -1.5 line that most people got. And, the insanity of football, it really is robotic. It's very sharp. And oftentimes when you see out-of-division matchups like this that are very closely graded, the line is very correct. The Saints were supposed to win the game by 2 or 3 points. And if you actually look at the dispersion in terms of the yards, it was right there, first of all. And second of all, the insanity is if a kicker just makes the kicks he's supposed to make, they walk it off with a 35 to 40-yarder on the final drive and win 22-20 right on the number. And that's the insanity of football, is that sometimes you just get caught up in these outliers and it's unavoidable variance. And there's just no way around it. And, you go to a couple of the other games, which were equally as ridiculous. As I mentioned, the Cincinnati game, we won that. So I'm not going to sit here and complain because you could make the argument that Geno Smith gifted us that game and Joe Burrow was, we said he was good last week. He was good early and then he kind of cratered down. I think one thing about that game, which is very interesting, I don't entirely think we know how good the Seahawks really are. At least for me. The Seahawks for me are one of those teams where they could be pretty good. They could be mediocre. They're definitely not bad, and they're definitely not great. But I think that they're open for evaluation. And I think what's really interesting with this team is that, Pete Carroll is obviously well-credentialed, an incredible coach, but he's also just a great general manager. And some of the points he has made with this group, drafting defensive players, and guys, I know he has not been the general manager for 20 years. I'm just speaking as I flow in life because I know he has massive influence in terms of who gets drafted. When you draft Devin Witherspoon, this kid is so fucking electric. So electric. Was just a dog at the best Illinois team last year with Brett Bielema. Dog. Ice cold, in the middle of the winter, basically, in Illinois, Big Ten football. Just a dog. Talk about a great draft pick. Great draft pick. And to see that guy on the field executing immediately in his rookie year, pure confirmation of a great draft pick. So I think that this team has so much upside. I think that my confusion point, truthfully, is more than anything, Geno Smith, actually. Because I think Geno Smith, coming out of West Virginia, Jets being the Jets, Geno being maybe unadjusted to pro ball, the speed of the defense, this and that, taking some time off, moving around, becoming a journeyman, notably saying he worked on his mental health, worked on visualization, positive energy, self-trust, maybe deep study of defenses, the whole process. The guy's playing great ball, but here's my confusion point. It's very, very rare to see a 32-year-old journeyman or older become a Super Bowl winning quarterback, even if they get rebooted. And I love Pete Carroll. I love this group. I love the defense. The defense is young. Geno Smith, for me, is somewhere in the middle of a stopgap and an incredible rejuvenation, backdoor career story, and I just can't place it. So that's where I'm confused on this team. I think Geno Smith is my confusion point. And Walker Bailey, great comment. Geno Smith is living his Ryan Tannehill era. I mean, that's a great corollary. I really do. Really do. Great coach, good scheme, good defense, coming into a more comfortable place and balling out. Love that. Love that. And I think that they might actually get to maybe the first round this year. I think maybe the first round and compete on the road. Probably not get any further. And obviously, speaking on Tannehill and that group, you remember they did actually win a road game, I believe, in their first season together at Baltimore. So I think that if we're going to say Tannehill, there's some expectation there actually in the playoffs. That would suggest a road win in the playoffs against potentially a higher seeded team. So we will see. And let me see who's talking in the chat. Ty Wood says the 29-yarder was disappointing. Oh, yeah, without question. That's a must make. And again, the 52-yarder. I mean, bro, this is contemporary football. These kickers are good now. 55 yards, 52 yards, 60 yards. I mean, some guys are making it look classic from 60, easy. I mean, we got to readjust our expectations to a certain degree. That should have been a 20-19 game. It should have been a 20-19 game, and they should have walked it off with a field goal instead of having to go for it on 4th and 10. So, Saints should have won the game 22-20, but what are you going to do? You got to move on. I do think he's a stopgap. Obviously, you're getting him theoretically the back end of his prime, but I think that the team is showing massive upside from that standpoint. I do think they have cleaned up against trash, as you guys saw on the show earlier. That's why we obviously backed Cincinnati this week. They had beaten the Giants, the Panthers, and really gotten slightly situationally fortunate against Detroit prior. So I do think to a certain degree they are going to be a fade going forward. I will say this. I do like them. I haven't capped the game, just looked at the card very loosely going forward to next week, week 7. I do think they are probably a buy spot at home at 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific against Arizona again. We've detailed this with Arizona. Arizona, obviously, 3-0 ATS to start the year. Very, very not symptomatic as to what they're going to continue to do over the course of 18 weeks through January the 10th or 8th or whatever it is. But I think when you look at this from a Seahawks perspective, this is probably a Seahawks buy spot this week upcoming against Arizona. I think Arizona is in a really tough travel spot as well. Competed reasonably well in the first half. That might be nice to say that, actually. I believe the Rams had a turnover that gave them a field goal. They didn't get in the end zone the entire game. No James Conner. Just a slight look ahead on that comment as we segue off of this particular game. We'll talk about a few other games. And we're probably going to talk for another hour here, guys. So shoot the shit and let's fucking dominate with it. But I do think as a very early look and conversational point, I think the Seahawks coming home here off 2 road games, getting back in their element. They are 0-1 ATS at home in the division this year. Did take a loss in week 1 to the Rams. I don't think that's the Cardinals. I think the Seahawks this particular week upcoming, probably a look. Arizona a little capped and struggling. Joey says, right now, if the season were to end today, the Bears would get the number 1 pick and number 1 and number 2 pick in the draft. I didn't even know that. I did not know that. I appreciate that fact. What is the corollary point there? What was the trade? If you can just refresh my memory on that. Let me scroll up in the chat and see what's going on here. Ziggy Balls in the house says, I like Pete Carroll, great coach, great energy. I completely agree, without question. Without Fields, yeah, this team is dead. I think that it's super interesting from the standpoint that they now are playing this kid from Shepherd College or whatever it was, D2. We're not even talking FCS football here. We're talking Division 2. And this is the guy that had the arm wrestling champion, his dad. I mean, talk about a story. But, I mean, you saw the first drive, he came in and immediately just had no situational awareness or pocket awareness of the speed of the pass rush of the NFL. I mean, that first fumble, I didn't watch the second half of the game, guys, so I'm just making a comment on the first drive. That fumble, that was purely just such inexperience. He just did not feel that rush, and he was trying to move around. He thought he had more time. And NFL defenses, this is not Division II football in college, guys. So he was just so overwhelmed. And I think it's a beautiful thing for him to obviously get a shot. I think he, potentially could get a shot and really sustain at some point. But the growing pains will be very real for a guy like that who has never faced that type of speed on the defensive side of the ball at all. Okay, the trade for DJ Moore. Okay, for sure. Let me just take a sip of water, guys. I do want to talk the Monday Night Football game. We are going official with Dallas minus 125, 1.25 units official. Love Dallas here, guys. So get that in now. I do feel like we're in a really nice buy zone for Dallas. I've missed Dallas twice this year. And I said to myself, I talk to myself in a very deep way. I always do. And I say to myself, stay the course, brother. Stay the fucking course. There is no way I could live with myself if I don't back Dallas this week off that obliteration last week at San Francisco. I had Dallas this season twice. I had them at Arizona. They lost outright. I had them at San Francisco. They got blown out. What's the key point here? They're 0-2 ATS and outright at the NFC West. And it's very situational. The first game was a trap. The second game, they just got demolished. They've gotten crushed by the Niners sustainably, so let that be for what it is. This team does perform well at the AFC. If you go back to last year, this is all off the top of my head. I'm going to do a show tomorrow with the gun, I believe, and we're going to go into super detail. But last year, they were up 27-10 at Jacksonville, and they melted the game. So I don't think you can say they played poorly at the AFC. I think they're potentially a juggernaut. Their other AFC outcome last year was a blowout win at the Titans late season. So they were 1-1 ATS, 1-1 straight up last year at the AFC. But crucial point, very easily could have been 2-0 in both scenarios, ATS and straight up, outside of an egregious melt in Jacksonville. I think more importantly, the only time last year Dallas lost a game on the road outside of the division and stayed on the road, and I do say this with significant psychological emphasis because I do think this is really important. When you're playing professional football and you lose a game on the road out of division and you have to play the following week also outside of the division, it's theoretically a really tough spot. Really tough spot. Last year, they lost a game that they also melted significantly in the fourth quarter at Green Bay, 31-28. They stayed on the road. And I think that I talked about this on the show with Guns that particular weekend. And I said, I don't know how to read Dallas here because when you're up huge at Green Bay and you melt the game and you have to stay on the road, how do you bounce back? Is it demoralizing? Is it energy draining? Or do you get angry? Well, they beat Minnesota 40-3 in that game. And it was the same line. They were laying -3 points. And you go to the Chargers, you look at a lot of the things with the Chargers. Good stuff develops. The Chargers are 1-3 ATS and straight up in the last 2 seasons at home against the AFC. And I think in terms of line strength, which is very important, this is the first time that the Chargers have been an underdog against the NFC in the Herbert era in the last 2 years. It's very strong. The last time Dallas played at the Chargers, it was early season 2021. Dallas did win the game 20-17. And crucial point there, the Chargers were actually favored in that game -3. So the books are telling you this story is moving towards Dallas. And if you just look at the Chargers in terms of their calendar spot, the Chargers are actually in a really tough spot here. The Chargers are coming off 2 wins outright. They have a bye. They got to play Dallas, who will be so angry and annoyed tonight on Monday night. Then the Chargers have to play at Kansas City in their next game. I believe also on a primetime game. I could be wrong on that, but huge trap spot for the Chargers here. And Ty Woods, you know this. Great comment. The Chargers always play Kansas City tough. They always play Kansas City tough. They do not play the NFC tough at home. And if you go back to last year, they had a couple really lackluster performances out of the division at home. I believe this team is running roughly a 35 to 40% cover rate outside of the division at home. And again, they have not been an underdog in 2 years in this spot. Books are all over this. Books want Dallas to win. Public wants the Chargers to win. I look at a couple databases. I don't cap the market at all, but I just, after I cap the game, I look to see what's going on a little bit. I got to be honest with you guys. Our dear friend Joe Public is leaning towards the Chargers in this game because Joe Public just looks at recent history and thinks it will repeat itself. And I will tell you guys this: you go to your office pool, you go to the office tomorrow morning, you talk to your friend group, you talk to Fans United, Sports Center Cappers, you go to Joe Public Gambling Twitter, you go to 99% Accounts. What do they say? What do they say? I can't back Dallas. I can't back Dallas. I can't do it. And you say, why? They got blown out of the Niners. They're terrible. That's it. Recency bias. Joe Public caps on this deep, unrealistic presumption point that the past will repeat itself. In life, it's largely the opposite. Usually, what just happened will actually go the other direction because the law of averages suggests off a brutal environment, you will improve. Off a great environment, you will come down a little bit. And unfortunately, most people, as we try to continue to educate people within this channel, and people are definitely starting to think more clearly, most people who listen to different sports media outlets just hover in this zone of illogical evaluation, assuming the last result has to repeat itself when it usually is the opposite. So we love this spot. We're on Dallas minus 125, 1.25 units. I love the fucking spot. I think it's great. I might upgrade to 2 units as well tomorrow. I'm not sure what the gun, I believe, has minus 1.5 or minus 2.5. I saw minus 1.5. I grabbed minus 125. I just felt like, even though I think they win the game by at least 3 points, just in terms of those margins, we're talking a small amount of money just to have some sort of safety in terms of variance, in terms of the actual motivation of the game. And it's not wildly, obvious, but excuse me, it is wildly obvious. These teams don't play to cover the spread. So, in my opinion, when you get a 1.5 line, there's really no point in not taking the money line because you just want to be on that point from a safety perspective. So, we will see on that, but I think it's a great spot. I think there's a good chance they could hammer them. Last year at home, now that I'm recalling a little more specifically off the top of my head, last year at home, the Chargers did have 2 isolated games against the NFC. They did get blown out by Seattle 37-23 as a small favorite. I'm not entirely sure Dallas is going to blow them out, but I think there's a very good chance the Chargers play down to the spot and Dallas just completely out physicals them. Dallas has an elite defense. You guys know that. They just got completely outclassed by, maybe the best team in the sport. It's always week to week. We thought they were going to run the table. All of a sudden they lose to Cleveland, the Niners, that is. So be it. But nonetheless, the Niners just manhandle the Cowboys, and they did. And there's a bounce back, a huge bounce back spot here. Yeah, Ty Woods, 100%. Yeah, Chargers were -5. The line that I saw, I capped it like 3 hours ago during the Giants game. I was just bored. I was like, let me look at the Monday Night Football game. Yeah, it was Chargers -5. I'm not sure if that was open or close, but it was. And they just got slammed. 37-23 Seattle. Just slammed. And there was another home game last year against the NFC. I think they won, but I think it was a real bottom feeder. I think they were laying minus 6.5, 7 against an awful, awful team. So I don't think that's indicative of much. So we're on Dallas. That's the breakdown here. I want to take a sip and I want to chat with you guys a little more. We got 21 people in the chat. Appreciate you guys so much. If you're not chatting in the chat, if you're open for business, please type plays, comments, analysis. I want to jump off with you guys. As I was saying just when I introed this 20 minutes ago, these conversations are more so literally that, conversations. So please drop comments. I'm open for business, and I would love to answer questions and discuss whatever games you guys are looking at here. So please, even if you've never commented before, please comment. I appreciate you guys immensely. Joe, let me scroll up in the chat. I did actually cap NHL for a few years, very effectively. I will say, very effectively. I love the sport. I just haven't had the time to do it in terms of what I do in terms of media, and that is part of it for me. I will be honest with you guys. The media angle of what I do takes a lot of time to be able to present on-air analysis, do shows, work with companies, and what for. Listen, I'm right there with you guys. I love the NHL. It's incredibly profitable. There's no way around it. I just don't have the time to be in terms of detailed analysis and the articulation of what I want to do. That being said, we're trying to put together different shows on this channel. If you guys are interested, any of you guys, if you've ever done content, if you want to do content, we're trying to put together shows for different sports that I don't do and the gun doesn't do. So if anybody ever wants to do shows and do content and really grow out a brand with us, we're willing to put you guys on shows. We're willing to put together shows for you guys in sports that we don't handicap. We don't have time to discuss in detail. So just a point there for you guys that, handicap hockey. I appreciate you, brother. My guy. Cheers, bro. Connor Bedard, 18 years old. Cheers to that. Fucking heck. And no, I mean, I grew up in the 90s. I grew up with the New York area being super live in hockey. The Devils and the Rangers. Huge competitive environment. We got back-to-back cups, 94 Rangers, 95 Devils, loaded lineups, the whole thing. I've always just been an NBA guy. I got to be honest with you guys. I love the sport of basketball. And it sounds a little bit weird, and you guys don't know me that well, but I'll tell you guys this story. I played lacrosse, and I played lacrosse my entire youth, and I played lacrosse into college, D1. And you guys know this. Lacrosse and hockey are very much congruent to each other from the standpoint of just the general ball skills with a stick and just the general hand-eye coordination that it takes to play that effectively. So I know hockey and I know lacrosse very well. I played it, but I've always just been a basketball fan. Something about basketball just does it for me. I'm not entirely sure what it was. I think it goes back to early 90s when I was a kid. I was living in Greenwich, Connecticut at the time. I was 5 years old, and I remember watching Michael Jordan play. And it's that basic. It is that basic for me. I was watching Michael Jordan play in the playoffs. I was 5, and I was literally glued to the screen. And my mom tells the story. She's like, I didn't know who my kid was. And he was so glued to the basketball screen. And secondarily, rushing to the mailman to get the mail in the newspaper every single day for 2 years to study the box scores of basketball. And that's pretty much my life as to why I do what I do now and why I have this channel and the depth of my sports knowledge. Pretty much from the beginning of my existence point as a person, I've just loved sports, loved watching sports, loved the data of sports, the statistics, and the patterns of it. I love it. And I've always been doing it. So, but basketball was always my thing. And I just liked it. I think I just like the competitive quality. I talked about this on a show the other day. The thing I like about basketball is just the fact that you get more authenticity in the result, more often than not. 5-on-5, no pads. Best players, best teams, psychological dynamics, they do win. Hockey has dispersion. You guys know that. Baseball has dispersion. Puck luck, ball dispersion in baseball. That frustrates me. I fundamentally, as a person, function on logic. And I feel like, particularly in my youth when I was evaluating this, and I didn't even know what logic meant, I think when I look back on my life, and I think that's why I didn't like those sports as much as basketball, is because I realized that I didn't like arbitrary dispersion points statistically determining outcomes. And it would stress me out. And I always liked the fact that when I was handicapping, and I wasn't handicapping it when I was 5, but I was. I was looking at the games. I was thinking, who's going to win? What's going on here? Why are these teams playing well? What's going on in this series, et cetera, et cetera. I always liked the fact that I could key into the competitive nature of the players and try to figure out what was going to go on in terms of the sport because of that. And I felt like there was less luck involved. And, as an adult, we talk about this. It's not wrong. You talk about hockey. Hockey is, I don't have the statistic in front of me, but hockey is one of the only sports that you will see 8 seeds beat 1 seeds in the playoffs at even a marginal percentage. And I say that intentionally, marginal percentage, because it shouldn't happen theoretically. Based on the way the regular season plays, it should be theoretically so improbable for a 1 seed to bow out in the first round to the worst seed in the playoffs. And in hockey, it happens. And the reason it happens is because there's a certain amount of luck. It's the goalie getting hot. It's the fact that you have to get a puck into a small zone and one player can determine the outcome. And you want to talk about baseball as a cross-referencing point. The goalie in hockey is the pitcher in baseball. One player determines the outcome far, far more. And the other players are universally disconnected to how much power that player has for the outcome of a game and a series. And it just continued to blow my mind. It always blew my mind, but it still continues to blow my mind. And just from a standpoint of I'm always functioning on the logic and the prognostication. And when I see variance and arbitrary outliers existing more, I think I go away from that sport. And I think that part of the reason why people love baseball and they love hockey is because as a fan, it's so entertaining because you don't know what's going to happen. And I think that's also a great segue point to a comment on handicapping versus fandom. Handicapping basically sucks the entertainment and the fandom out of sports. And I want to discuss this briefly. When I started handicapping in a professional way 7 to 8 years ago, I gradually became less of a sports fan. I am now a prognosticator. Therefore, I'm trying to figure out the result. And when I'm figuring out the result, I want an outcome. I don't want a game that's back and forth. I don't want an entertaining game at all. I want a blowout, period. And when you bet, you want blowouts. You do not want sweat. Sweat is stressful, particularly when it matters immensely to your personal finances and the finances of people who follow you in an enterprise. So I think that needs to be stated. And I've said it before, but I want to state it here on YouTube for the first time, is that there's a severe, severe disconnect between sports prognostication and betting and fandom. Because when I don't bet and I watch a game like tonight, I wasn't betting the Giants game versus the Bills. I go back into fandom. It's fun. You want a back and forth game. You want to see that final drive. You want to see a backdoor touchdown. It's entertaining. It's movie. It's Hollywood. Betting makes shit boring. It makes shit professional, and it makes shit things that it takes your fandom out of it. So if you really decide at a certain point in your life that you're going to do this in a very serious way and you're going to really go for it, you have to acknowledge that sports are no longer really going to be fun for you. And it's something that I've had to undergo over the last 4 to 5 years when I started this channel. I don't think I ever really thought that I would get to this point, if I'm being honest. When I clicked the button the first time I went live, I said, hey, what's going on, guys? And it jumped from there. But I'll tell you guys, the games are not fun. Games are not fun. Saturday afternoon when we got college football, there's a lot of plays that I play that I don't put on record because of in-game second half plays. I won't go into too much detail on that. I'm spending 25 units on a Saturday from noon to 12 o'clock. And last night we had Hawaii. I'm sitting here by this computer for 12 hours. And not only that, it's so much screen time. I got to get my ass out in nature and just take a breath. But it's stressful. It's volatile. It's business. I wouldn't have it any other way, but I do want to make that point. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. And, people have said come to Vegas for March Madness a couple times. Dead honest with you guys, I didn't go there because I was betting on it, and I knew that I couldn't hang out with people properly because I was betting on it. And I'm not trying to hang out and shoot the shit. And I've talked about this so many times with people that have other jobs. People really don't connect with the professional gambler aspect, understanding that when they get off of work, they want to sweat. And they might cap it really religiously and intelligently, but it's still not their primary income source. So it's still recreational by default. This is not recreational for me. So if I'm out in Vegas hanging out with the guys, I need this outcome. It's stressful as fuck. It matters. These guys are shooting the shit, getting drunk. I'm like, no, I'll see you guys in 10 hours at 11 o'clock at night at the 24-hour bar. We'll drink till 3 a.m. and party then. I got to work. I got to walk. I got to do a workout. I got to hydrate, do my thing. It's very professional lifestyle I live within betting, guys. And it's a disconnect because most people are not doing this professionally. Even the guys that you see that I work with, and you see guys that are commentating constantly on gambling Twitter. One of the best things about Jay Money, and of course, I really do regret the situation with Jay Money. I've said this before, but I really do. We had a great show. It was an amazing thing, but so be it. That's life. But one of the great things about Jay Money is that he's also a professional gambler and he's a professional content provider. So he's not doing anything else. And there's something really nice about working with people that are not doing anything else because their prime focus is this. They also understand the ebbs and flows and the things that I'm talking about. Where when you're working with guys that are recreational, it takes time for them to understand this actually matters for you. It's not just a side hobby or something that you're doing with some sort of focus, but it doesn't really matter. And it's an interesting point. And 100%, Joey, what up, brother? Sports Talk with you, my guy. What up, bro? Second half plays, just hit me in the DM, brother. Hit me in the DM. Hit me in the DM. I usually get up at 10 o'clock in the morning when I'm commentating and I'm sharing the show that Guns is doing on Sharky Waters Nation channel. I do want to make a point on that. Guns and I are working towards a partnership in this channel, and that is something that I'm so unbelievably happy to announce, where we're going to be promoting this channel and working together as partners for the rest of the future, hopefully. And but when he starts his 10 o'clock show is pretty much when I really get in the lab myself on Saturday morning, and I really start to look at what angles are going to go down at noon, first half, second half, the splits, the numbers that I want, if certain teams that I expect to come out flat, where I want the number to come in the second half if they do come out flat. A lot of complexity, a lot of detail, and there's just a ton of work for it. So it's really not something that I put on any sort of live context because I have to be in my own mind, in my own lab. I cannot be distracted over the course of 4 to 6 to 8 to 10 hours. But if you guys want those angles, hit me in the DM. I'd be willing to share as a point. So appreciate you guys on that. Yeah, no, I agree with you, bro. But the thing is, like, part of the reason why I'm only on Twitter is I don't really want to have a channel like that where I'm putting out plays for people. Like, I do my thing, and I want to do shows and content and the official plays. It's just how I want to run business. But if I wanted to do that, I'd be in a different atmosphere, if that makes sense. If I was running a Telegram account with, 100 people, 200, 500 people, we'd be running basically a private service. There'd be a lot going on. I'd be doing a lot of things. I really love doing the content, the shows, the official plays, which are the top plays, the full game spots. And then I do my own thing off the record. And then I come on and do shows when I have the time. And that's my primary focus because, again, just understand to run a Telegram channel or, Patreon or Slack or these things, that's 24/7 business. So I'd have to go a different direction in my energy. I would be in there all the time. And it's not what I'm really trying to do, if I'm being perfectly honest. Like, I'm not really trying to run a tout service. charge people for plays, be in there 24/7 talking plays, and it's more so it's too insular for me if I'm being honest. Ziggy's talking Cowboys. Yeah, taking a sip, guys. Cheers to you guys. 45 minutes in here. Let's fucking dominate, guys. But that is a significant point, and I do want to make that point. It's not a disrespectful point to you guys at all. It really is not. It really is not. I just if I decided that I wanted to do that, I would have had a Telegram or, as I said, Slack or Patreon, whatever these services are. I would have had that 2 or 3 years ago. It's just not my angle. I don't really want to be sitting on my phone all day articulating plays to people. I want to be doing what I do in my own environment here and putting out content and growing a channel that way. And obviously having you guys tail. And, if you guys had tailed from the very beginning, you're up significantly with our plays. So that's the baseline point. And that's really what it is. Email, precisely. And it becomes a tout service. And my energy is not a tout service. I think it's funny when I did the podcast the other day with Rob Pizzola. I'm not entirely sure if you guys watched the podcast. I was on the Circles Off podcast last Tuesday, just shared on YouTube. I encourage you guys to watch it. Great conversation between myself, Rob, and his partner Johnny. I was trying to locate this guy Johnny. I wanted to shoot him a DM and follow him. I don't know if he's on Twitter. I'm not entirely sure, but great conversation, 3-way for an hour and 20 minutes. Highly productive, highly transparent, great stuff. But that's a perfect example of what Emal is saying, is that if I'm running a Telegram business, I'm not on a podcast talking for an hour and a half to people who I've never spoken to, taking time out of my day to prep and articulate and get my mind right to do these type of things. Media is my game. Sports betting is my game. Sports betting and media, as they come together, are the ultimate game. And that is what Sharky Waters Nation is. You're going to get the top plays every day. You're just not going to get the in-game plays and the second half plays and all the ins and outs that are the movable parts over the course of hours in the day, because that's just something that I don't have the energy for, to be perfectly honest. And I would much rather pour my energy into doing shows and top plays and connecting on that level. So, Candyman, what's up, brother? Circles Off podcast. Great conversation. And it was a blast to get on there with those guys. I think it was interesting. I think there was a little animosity prior, which I didn't even realize. But I think that they had maybe taken me out of context, maybe misrepresented me when I obviously had some turmoil last year and the whole thing. But I was talking to Guns about this, going back to the Friday broadcast pre-show. He and I were talking about it. And I was saying, one of the things that I really enjoyed about it was just getting out of my comfort zone. I work with Guns for years now. I work with Jay Money for years now. I haven't really gone on the air with anybody different. And I would say, you get some butterflies before you do it. And it was fun for me to feel little butterflies for the first time in a couple of years. Just, what's their vibe going to be? What's their energy going to be? What are they going to ask me? What's going on? And I got on there and I felt so comfortable. I just felt like I was in my element, my zone. I realized that's exactly why I did. I wanted to push the limits. I wanted to see what was going on with other people. I wanted to see what the conversation was like, the energy, the general ideology of people within Gambling Twitter. And they run a great podcast. They asked a lot of great questions. I would say they haven't followed me closely because they asked a couple of questions that I thought were pretty wild. They did insinuate at one point in time that I don't track any of my plays and my followers have no idea what the win rate is. And I was like, guys, I don't know where you heard that, but that's completely certifiably false. I recap every single day of the week. Just because I'm not on one of these apps doesn't mean we're not tracking plays. And that was an interesting point. Not no animosity, no hostility, but I thought that was interesting just because I think they were asking the question under the assumption that I'm throwing flyer plays arbitrarily and nobody has any clue if we're winning or losing. And I was like, guys, what are you talking about? But just a great example too, when you go into a different energy space, conversational space, group of people who do their own thing, oftentimes they don't follow you at all. And there were definitely some points where they were asking questions, I would say presumptively almost, and they were clearly wrong and just not educated on the topic. And I almost thought to myself, wow, I can't believe you guys thought that. I wasn't laughing from the standpoint of irony or disrespect, but I thought, wow, I can't believe you guys actually thought that. I think that to a certain degree, they actually camped me in with Trent. And I'm not exaggerating. I think they thought that Trent and Shark were both great content creators who don't win at sports betting and just sell content to their followers. And I thought that was actually crazy, but just a point of reference for those of you guys who are going to watch that. And no bullshit. I mean, I'm sure if Rob heard this, he would say, yeah, to a certain degree. And his guy Johnny, because they both were saying like, so how much do you make off marketing since sports betting is lacking in profit? And I was like, guys, what are we talking about here? I was like, I had a bad month last year. I think that's also an interesting point. Is I think that there's a certain amount of people in gambling Twitter and the world in general that only follow notoriety. And notoriety is also a misused word. What notoriety means, it means famous for a bad reason. Very specifically, famous for a bad reason. There are certain people that only look for notoriety. So when I was going on a really isolated cluster of BS last year in the NBA, I mean, I lost 31 units in a month. Worst month I've had in 5 years. All of a sudden, I got all these different eyeballs on me. All these people that never followed me, commenting, telling me like this and that, all like peanut gallery times 100. But the interesting point is that when people who follow notoriety and follow for only some sort of maybe not the right reason, the thing that I've noticed is that they never actually ask, so what happened before I followed at this point? And I've seen this with a couple guys who exclusively continue to smear me. And trust me, guys, I'm so far past this. It's just an interesting point on human nature. And they say this is what Shark does based on a small window where they followed at the worst point in the sample. And I think to a certain degree, that's where the narrative got stirred up with people, because people started following when I went on a really gross month-long cooler, if you will, in NBA. And then all of a sudden this image was that I was a trend. And I go on this podcast and they're asking me questions. So like basically like if you don't profit off sports betting, you make money off media because you're entertaining. And I was like, that's crazy that that's actually the ideology that's going on in that circle of conversation, because it's blatantly false. But that's the interesting point about people in general. That's how people are. And it is interesting. It's very interesting how people are. They will come in just out of nowhere, see you in your lowest moment and assume that's exactly who you are and ask no questions and then just project a narrative on that. Pretty wild, if I'm being honest with you guys. Houston Texans fan says the Houston Texans are a playoff team. I love it, bro. I love it. I just need every team to come in with blah, blah fan. This team is a playoff team. I love it, bro. Cheers, man. Cheers, man. I'm only laughing because I love the hustle. I love the hustle. I love the hustle. Yeah, Joey, and that, I mean, again, bro, we lost 1 month. We lost 1 month. 1 month. No joke. 1 month. 1 month. I've had 2 losing months in the last 4 years on Twitter. And that's all it took for people to come in and just start, as I said, obsessing over this notoriety. That's how wild it is. That's how wild it is. Unbelievable. Bengals are not back. I think they're good. I think their defense is great. I think Seattle is slightly overrated. I was actually really surprised that the Bengals did not take far more advantage of what happened early. Obviously scoring 14 points in the first quarter or early second quarter or whatever that was, and then just falling flat the rest of the game. Only point there was that situational analysis did hold weight. They didn't need to score 40 points. They just had to cover the spread. And they now are 6-0-1 against the spread out of the division in the last 7. So that's kind of how you handicap professional football. It's not so much they score 40 or 10, do they cover situationally. Great question. Any chance of reconciling with Philly? I hit up Philly last week or 2 weeks ago or something like that. I apologized to him and I said to him, first of all, I didn't mean anything by what I said. I will say that. My comment was that he's doing book reporting handicapping. And what I meant by that was just that he's recapping the recent history of the game, expecting it to repeat. That's all I meant. And I'll say this on the air. It wasn't personally offensive. I don't dislike the guy. I think he's a great human being. He would say this. This is no bullshit. I've had tens of hours of personal conversation with him on Zoom, talking lifestyle, people, wives, relationships, culture, whatever. He's a good dude. And, I was on there and I thought some of his plays were square and I called it out. And then all of a sudden it became the end of the world. So, I apologize to him. I'll apologize to him here. Phil, you're a good dude. You're a great dude. I apologize, bro. It was literally just a comment on baseball plays and just the recency bias aspect that, based on handicapping with me for 6 months, I don't fuck with. And that was it. I was a little drunk and I made a comment. So my bad. Appreciate you, brother. For real. And that's it. He's a good dude. He's a great dude. And the crazy thing is I know him, in a much more personal way than everybody that follows him, Like if any of you guys have done hours and hours of Zoom calls with the guy, feel free to comment. But that's the wildness of it. It just in terms of like the public media aspect. And it's something that I learned about too over the course of time is that, I'm a hyper competitive guy. Like I would definitely cross myself with like a Draymond Green type where, Draymond Green is a deep soul. He's a life lover. He's a leader of people. He's a big passion and energy. He has a great podcast. He's very authentic. But when he gets in his competitive element, which is professional basketball, he's a dog. He's an assassin. He will shit talk if he's attacked. I'm very similar to Draymond Green. If people attack me, if they mess with me, I have a survivalistic instinct in me, and I have a big adrenaline energy within me, and I react. So that's where my moments that didn't come across very well existed. I'm in my playing field. Sports betting is my playing field. Sports media is my playing field. And I haven't been afraid to hold back my thoughts, even when they were, potentially aggressive towards people. And again, not aggressive in a literal way, but more so a Draymond Green on the basketball court, just standing his ground. And that's all I was ever doing, just standing my ground when under attack from people on gambling Twitter. So, people want to say all this stuff. They want to, take shit so far out of context. They want to smear, defame, whatever. Anybody who knows what's going on knows that when you're in your competitive playing field, people are going to come at you. You got to defend your turf. Doesn't mean that you have some sort of like criminal intentions. Absolutely not. It's soul, it's life, it's love, it's respect, it's survival. It's just competition. And it's like being on a professional basketball court or professional football court. That's pro sports handicapping and pro sports media. People shit talk, you fire back. That's it. And I never ever meant anything terrible to anybody in sports media. I think everybody has great intention. It's just competitive. That's it. It's competitive. If it's just shit talk, like 90s Gary Payton and Michael Jordan. Really. So that's it. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Always in the feelings, man. And it's one of those things where we're just competing. We're doing our business. We're making picks, we're creating media, and people want to make comments about this. I make comments about this, whatever. Who cares? But people really get juiced up about it. Jamal, great question. How do you think Giannis and Dame look together? Small sample size, but Giannis should be favored for MVP. I got to be honest with you, I did not watch the preseason. I've been very locked into collegiate and professional football here. I don't think I've ever really locked into the preseason. That being said, I think that they have a great chance of going back to the finals. I do think Boston is probably the favorite. I think Boston has more depth. I do think that Damian has a bit of an adjustable point. I think that the Bucks might struggle early season against the spread. I think there's going to be not only a strategic on-court adjustment, but I think there's going to be an energy adjustment in the locker room and on-court in terms of leadership. I think you get two alpha dogs here. I really think this is the first time in Giannis's career he's ever played with an A-list alpha dog superstar. Chris Middleton is not that. Drew Holiday is not that. The rest of the guys on that team are not that. I think this is going to take some adjustment. And of course, they don't play the same position. This is not Dwayne Wade teaming up with LeBron James, but this is definitely just a real alpha dog 1, alpha dog 2 on the same team type of adjustment. I think it's going to take some time. I really think it's going to take some time. And I think you're going to see some ATS efficiency fading this team at least in the first month, maybe 6 to 8 weeks or somewhere around there. But I think they will hit their flow. I think they will really hit their wind probably in December and get into their flow, through January into the spring and whatnot. So appreciate you, man. Bobby, you're a dog. Appreciate you, man. Petros, what up, brother? But I think that the Celtics probably are the odds-on favorite at this point. I haven't bet any futures in the NBA, but I do think the Celtics have just a naturally better flow in the group. The one thing that I think that will continuously and really just, I say continuously, but maybe indefinitely hold them back is I don't think Joe Mazzulla is a championship coach. I think Ime Udoka was their championship coach, obviously made some transgressions, which got him fired and moved him to Houston eventually. I don't think Joe Mazzulla is a championship coach, and I think this is very specific stuff to late in the playoffs where it matters how you motivate your team over 4 to 7 games in the same series. And you've seen this with Boston year after year after year. They just don't motivate like normal human beings. Boston doesn't play well at home. They play better on the road. They have to lose a game to get annoyed to win a game. That's not conventional professionalism. You shouldn't have to get beat first to win a game in a playoff series. And there's been a psychological gap between Tatum and Brown. I think just in general, both are kind of Robins. Neither are Batman. Jaylen Brown is very cerebral. I think he's a little bit withheld in his conversation. I think he's incredibly smart and articulate, but I don't think he is communicative with Tatum. I think Tatum is also the same way. He's a little bit shy. I don't think he's incredibly outspoken. He's not a great leader. Great leaders are fiery. They bring it right to you with no hesitation. And I think both of those guys have hesitation in their leadership, which is why they have never been the leader. And that's why Marcus Smart, who was the 3rd or 4th best player on the team, was the leader. And I think this is why it's great they moved him off the roster. Not so much from the standpoint that he's going to make the team better from a player personnel standpoint, but I think it will make Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum both become better leaders without Marcus Smart in the locker room, basically doing the work for them that they maybe didn't want to do. It'll challenge them to get better in terms of leadership. And I think you bring Drew Holiday. I think he's a great player for the franchise. I think he's going to just fit right in. Highly professional, a little bit older, battle-tested, championship winner, right where they need to be. Porzingis, in my opinion, slightly off the grid in terms of usefulness, experience, this, and that. He's never really been deep in the playoffs in any context. He's never really been on a good franchise, if we're being honest. I think Dallas may be a reach. Maybe Dallas is a good franchise. I don't know. You could say they are. I don't know. But I think that Boston has a lot of things to work on, and I think they're probably 1 in the East. But I think the coach could really get in their way. I think Joe Mazzulla is not the leader, and we will see on that. We will see on that. Petro says just released under 42 on the Thursday Night Football Jags Saints games, or Jags Saints on Thursday Night Football. A lot of great points to it. Would lean Saints as well. Probably not getting there. Yeah, I haven't looked at that. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. What are your points on that? Drop a couple points in the chat. Jags obviously just lit up the divisional opponent. I like the small fade of that. Short week, Saints defense. Saints have not played an out-of-division home game, I believe. Only one divisional game at home against Tampa Bay, I believe. I could be wrong on that. Not entirely sure. Yeah, Bob, the Celtics are very psychological. I mean, that's NBA in a nutshell. NBA is so incredibly psychological. It really is how the guys get along with each other off the court and on the court, more than any other sport. It's what I was saying before. I was saying that hockey and baseball are very numerical, and there's so many different elements that are very disconnected. The pitchers don't really hang out with the lineup. There's a lot of disconnected points. Even the bullpen and the starters, the manager, the different groups, whatever. Hockey, same thing. Not necessarily the groups disconnected, but the fact that just puck luck on the court, you know, it's not so much your effort on a given day. It's more so if the bounces go your direction. You win hockey games sustainably by having better effort and better just relentlessness in the forward motion on the ice. You're going to get your chances, but it's just a dispersion of your chances connecting as a probability. So there's a variance point. But basketball is not like that. Basketball is pretty much who has the better players, who connects better, who flows better, who moves the ball better, who competes better, and who wants it more. And that literally translates to results. And that's why I've always loved basketball, because it just makes more sense. And I think it's an interesting point. And I agree with you. Blake Snell needs to change the pace. The Padres in general need to be overhauled. I mean, it's inexcusable for that team to miss the playoffs. Inexcusable. Just lackluster all year. Just a really poor locker room, clubhouse environment. Totally disconnected, and just tough stuff. And anyway, gonna wrap it up, guys. Been in here for a little over an hour. My voice does dry up. I'm gonna just finish this beer, go to bed, wake up, and we'll put out the official commentary on the Monday Night Football play. But for those of you guys in the chat, we are on Dallas minus 125, 1.25 units. Top play, all boxes checked. Great stuff. Appreciate you guys so much. Monday morning here on the East Coast. I know some of you guys are on the West Coast. Finishing up Sunday night. Sending you guys all the best vibes. Sharky Waters Nation, 9 words of lifestyle. Ride the wave out of the water. Let's fucking dominate, guys. See you guys in the morning. Cheers to you guys, and let's fucking dominate.